I'm spirit solistically speaking. I'm spirit solistically speaking. I'm spirit solistically speaking. We just chatting, y'all. I'm spirit solistically speaking. I'm spirit solistically speaking. I am. Who is it?
It is RJ, mother.
It's me, Kristen.
You don't know your name? What's up? What y'all piling in here for?
We heard you from all the way out there. We was wondering what you were doing.
I'm trying to do an intro for my new podcast. I have a new podcast, y'all.
Has a new podcast.
Yeah, I do. You remember the last one, RJ?
Yes, ma'am.
You and not RJ. You and Dre wrote the hook for the last one. How'd it go?
Inspirational treasure on the radio.
Right.
Inspirational treasure on the radio. She's on the radio. She's on the radio. She's on the radio. On the radio.
I like it. Yes. Y'all remember, that's pretty cool. But I can't use that same intro for this one because it's not entitled that. It's called Spirit Solistically Speaking.
Spirit solistically.
Spirit solistically speak.
No.
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. You walk.
No, that's not it either. And since y'all can't pronounce it, I guess y'all won't be helping me write no hook.
I'm not gonna lie though, those are 3 really big words.
It's not 3 words. First of all, because spirit solistically is 1 word. It is describing us getting our spiritual liberation through our soul's healing. You feel me? Like, this podcast is going to shed some light on some areas that many people may not want to talk about or discuss, but it's going to help some people be free. You feel me?
That's amazing. But they're still big words.
It's 1 big word because it's all put together. One way or another, it's all good. Oh, shoot, y'all, I didn't even stop my recording. And it's all right, though, so I guess we're going to make this the introduction. And I'm just going to say, welcome, everybody, to Spirit Solistically Speaking. I am your host, the Inspirational Treasure, and these are my awesome children, 3 of them anyway. And I'm ready to get this show started. Y'all ready for me to get this show started?
Yes,
Spirit Solistically Speaking. Spirit Solistically Speaking. No, Spirit Solistically Speaking. We just chatting, y'all.
Just chat.
Yeah. We just chatted with 3 big ones.
Just chatting. Let's get it started. Hello to you. This is the Inspirational Treasure, and yep, you have joined me for episode 7 of Spirit Solistically Speaking podcast. Guess what, y'all? We are here just chatting, and I am excited about being present with you tonight. And what you may not know is that normally I pre-record my episodes and post them, but tonight we are live. We are actually live. I am here. I am present with you live. And what I want is for you to be live and attentive with me, right? So that means if you are present, if you are listening, go ahead and put something in the chat to let me know that you are with me. You can say hello. You can say what it do. You can say what's good. Whatever it is that you're going to say to me tonight to let me know that you are present, please do so. I'm excited to be here with you and to share my chat with you tonight. All right. So the episode, as you see, is entitled "And That's What I Believe." Somebody may think, especially if you've been here and you've already listened to the other podcasts, and you might say, well, what's the difference between tonight and when you talked about your philosophy? And the difference is that a philosophy literally is just that. It's a almost like a hypothesis, an educated guess, something that a person may consider to be something, but not necessarily be what they fully believe. It could be what they're guessing about, what they're asking questions about, what they have come to some sort of conclusion about. And definitely my philosophy is close, very close to what my belief is. But let me go ahead and explain to you what the difference is. So a belief is accepting something as true, right? You feel pretty sure that it's the truth. And the difference between this and being dogmatic is that my belief system is exactly that. what I believe is what I believe. I don't believe that anybody has to believe what I believe. I do share, right, my perspective. I share my heart from my perspective, and I believe that, where I stand, I am here at this point because I've done my praying, I've done my studying, or I've just been living life, and I've come to certain conclusions um because I've lived life. But guess what? I'm still living life. So my belief can change. Yes, it can. And I think that's what some people may not fully understand. And the reason why we are not spiritually liberated, because at a time when you first believed something and it made absolute sense to you, and then as you grew, as you studied more, as you prayed more, as you asked for more guidance, your belief began to shift, but you didn't shift with your belief. You were afraid to. So a lot of our soul's healing needs to come because we begin to believe something different, but we were afraid to stand in that faith, to stand in that belief. Um, Belief is to have faith, right? To have faith in something. And so many of us, it changed, but we didn't change. It changed, but we didn't change. It changed, but we didn't change. So I would say that my belief right now, today, is built on where I am, my study, how I've studied, um, and I'm pretty okay with it. Well, I'm absolutely okay with it. But I did have to battle. And I think I made some mention of this a little bit early in one of the other podcasts. And I just know that it is what's serving me well. Um, I want to address that with you tonight because many of you, like I said before, you're still following some of the old things that you were doing, but you're not in faith. You don't believe it. You just are going with the motions and going with the flow of things. Many of you are still sitting in a place that you are not comfortable. You're bleeding there. You're hurting there. Um, and you're not able, to to shift. You're not able to shift because you feel like if you do, God is going to be mad with you, or your family members are going to be mad with you, or your church members are going to be mad with you, your spouse, maybe your children. You have a lot of concern about whether or not people are going to be able to accept you where you are. And so you don't believe what you did before, but you're afraid to live fully in your faith. And so I'm going to share with you tonight some of my thoughts, my beliefs again about where I am now. And a lot of what I'm going to say to you tonight, I gained this as I was doing my own soul's healing, right? If you remember, I told you, when I'm teaching and I say soul, what I'm talking about is your mind, your will, your emotions, or your mind, your heart, and your choices, your imagination, your thoughts. That's the part of us that gets bruised. That's the part of us that goes through life's challenges. And so because I've been going through my own life challenges and I say challenges and not always hardships, because every challenge is not a hardship. And it depends on how you look at life, right? And so because I've gone through my own obstacles and circumstances, and I'll share some of those with you tonight, it'll help you to understand me better, but maybe it'll also help you to discover what you actually believe. I have a women's coaching group, and I am a life coach for women. I'm a mental health support coach, a self-worth coach, And so I deal in a lot of areas with women where they are trying to figure out, who am I, man? Why do I even live like I do? Why am I so miserable in my life, but I want to be so free? And I live in a place where I believe in something. I think I believe in something. And that's pretty much the gist of it. They're going through the motions of life, but don't even know what they believe or if what they believe is proper. And some of their beliefs are built on their hardships. And so we have to heal our soul, right? And heal that part of us, our mental, our mind, which, deals with something bigger, but we'll just say mental, the mental part of us, the heart part of us, the choices that we make. They have been clogged up by old belief systems and the fear of breaking out. So I'm gonna answer a couple of questions, and I told you guys, and I think I made a post on my page that if you had questions, you can definitely, told you last week, as a matter of fact, that you can email me at inspirationaltreasure@gmail.com and ask your questions. Just bring up something that you may want to discuss, and if it goes in line with what we talk about here, then I'll be glad to try my best to answer your questions. I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that I have, and then prayerfully it will help you to begin to really hone in on what you believe. The reason why we're here chatting is so that you can get your soul's healing and experience your spiritual liberation. So I'm going to dive in, right? I'm going to dive in. So one of the questions naturally would be, what do you believe? What do you believe about God? And so I said before, my philosophy about God and my belief is pretty much hand in hand, almost the same. But when I think about that question, what do you believe about God? One of my first, my thoughts go to where it says, my thoughts are not yours and my ways are not yours, right? My thoughts are not yours. Your thoughts are not mine. My thoughts are not yours, and neither are your ways my ways, right? Saith the Lord. And this is speaking about God. And so when I think about God, when I talk about what I believe, it is so, at this point, different. And I don't want to say it was totally different, because like I told y'all before, I was kind of out there when I was younger growing up. I had like this really, wide open, God is amazing. He's everything. He created all of this. This is absolutely beautiful. So I've kind of been out there anyway, but it's gotten even deeper over these past few years, because what I've noticed is that even when I was everything that people told me that I shouldn't be, because I tried for years to not be that person. Don't do this, don't be this, don't act like this, don't say this, be this. It was the most confusing, most frustrating thing, trying not to be when I knew that God made me, and it just didn't make sense to me how he could make me and then have somebody tell me that who I am is wrong, or something is wrong with me. And so when I begin to really think about, my thoughts are not yours, and neither, your thoughts are not my thoughts, and neither are your ways my ways, says the Lord. I begin to think about that as it relates to God as the great I am, right? I am not made or created to be everything to everybody, but I am a portion. I am a piece of God. I'm a piece of God in the earth, because what I believe is that God is all things at all times at the same time. When I think of him being the I am, and I think about his thoughts not being mine, his ways not being mine, I'm saying, we're made in his image, which is spirit, and we're made in, in love, but none of us are God in his entirety, because we're looking at other things. We're looking at other people. And they all make up God as well. Right? Now, we're talking about what I believe. And so I'm a portion of that. I'm a portion of that, but I am not all. So God being the great I am means that there are parts of God that I just do not yet know about or understand. There are portions of God that will be explored from now into, and we say until forever, but literally God is eternity. God is eternity. You know, I used to say God is in eternity and we are in time, but literally God is eternity and God is time and God is no time and God is infinite and God is, so to me, God is everything that is. God is everything that is. So because God is everything that is, unlimited, there are no impossibilities in God. So when we talk about all these limited things and we try to put God in a box and we try to make it seem like God is this and God is that, and no, God doesn't approve of this, and no, God doesn't like this. I can't begin to say that I know what God would and would not approve of. And so of course, because I have, a upbringing in Christianity, I learned a lot of limitations. I learned what God wouldn't do and where God wouldn't go. I learned that God doesn't dwell in unclean places, or God doesn't do this. And so that may be very well true. God doesn't dwell in any unclean places because God doesn't see it as unclean as we do. So because God is everywhere at the same time, in all things, as all things at the same time, then I believe that what we think is unclean, God doesn't see the same. And it was that conversation he had with Peter, and I bring that up a lot, and you might hear me talk about that a lot because it was so profound to me to read it. And those are the type of things that would make me ask questions, because he's in this trance. First of all, he's in a trance. And one of the things, meditation, that word meditation was so taboo in church, and meditation the way that other people would do it. They were trying to discourage us from meditating the way they saw other people do it in other countries, Middle Eastern countries. But that's where Jesus is from. That's where Yahshua is from. He's from the Middle Eastern countries. And in that area, and he studied with people from that area, and he sat with people from that area, and Peter and the other disciples and them, they practiced certain things because of how they were raised, in the area they were raised. And there were so many things that we learned here in the Western countries, that I believe were totally different than what they practiced in the Middle East and in those areas. So we take things and we make them our own, and we push out, the things that don't serve us, which is actually, okay. It's not a bad thing, because we're all different creatures and we experience life and we experience God differently. But I think that that's the point. My belief is that God is all. So therefore, everything may not make sense to me. Everything may not make sense to you. We may have the thing that comforts us as a belief system, but it doesn't mean that God does not understand all that is. And so I'll say that for me, I just believe that when he says that I am, that kind of sums it all up. There's no going around that. There's no putting limitations on that. There's no putting that in a box. There's no accepting one thing and then rejecting another thing, because God is not like man. God is not man. God is everything. So mankind is just a tiny little portion, a tiny little portion in the greater whole, which is the I am, which is God. So I believe that God is all things. And I believe that, even us just saying he or she or it, you know, some of us, especially growing up, with scripture, we may think that saying it is like a whole disrespectful thing, but I just don't. I don't think that anything is disrespectful to God, because when I read that God made all things for himself, even the wicked for the evil day, like stuff like that just makes me stop and say, hey, it's just some stuff we just don't get. You know, we prophesy in part, we see in part, we don't see a full picture. But the whole thing makes up the big picture. You know, that leads into, the next question about what do I believe about mankind? I believe that mankind is limited to the portion of God that he wanted to express through us. We are all expressions of the great I am. And so when we look at another person and we say that that person, is not a part of God, or God wouldn't deal with them, or, they're totally out of pocket, and, God don't like this and God don't like that, that makes me question what we really believe about God, because what can exist? What can exist if I'm a believer in God, and of course everybody has their different thought process or their different understanding of who God is, what God is, and all that. So I don't take away from the fact that people have different thoughts and opinions. But what I know is that because mankind is limited, we tend to see God from our own perspective. And then we begin to say that our perspective is the one that is correct. Right. And when we do that, to me, that's a contradiction to saying that God is all. It's a contradiction to saying that God is all things and that God is the great I am. And so mankind is limited, and we try to limit God to our limitations. Ooh, you may want to write that down if you didn't already. Mm-hmm. I believe that mankind is limited, and we try to limit God. We try to limit God, bring God down to our limitations. And the way that we experience God is the way that we just assume that everybody is supposed to. But faith doesn't work like that. Belief, it doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't work that way. You can't make or force a person to believe what you believe, because then it's not belief. It's not faith. It's forced. It's a forced situation. So mankind is limited. We want to limit God to our own perspective. And we don't know and cannot even begin to fathom everything about God. So God is he, God is she, God is it, God is they, God is what, God is who, God is how, God is everything, and how do I know that God is everything? And there we go. How do I know? I only know because it is in me. So what I believe is what it is for me. And what you believe is what it is for you. That's what I believe. And that's what I believe. So with that being said, then, inspirational treasure, what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life, as I see it, literally is for us to just journey through. It's kind of like a creator, a person who creates games or systems, and they have all these different worlds and all these different ideas of what it should be. Movie makers, they have different universes or multiverses. They have different insight into so many different things. I honestly believe that everything that's ever been expressed or created was literally God's way of saying, hey, I want to do this now. I want to be this. I want to show up as this. I want to show up as this. And in the earth, I want to show up as human beings trying to find their way back to being reunited with me. To be absent from the body, which is what we have on earth, right? Bodies. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So if that be the case, then when we were incarnated into the body, we came from the Lord. And when we leave this body, we're going to go back to the Lord. And so that is literally me seeing us being put into this human flesh, there are some people who actually are able to see or go back in their mind's eye and see when they were born. They can see their birth. Um, some people have a clear view of what it felt like to be incarnated. You know, we were sperm, right? It was sperm, and the sperm met the egg and all that. And I think that there's no idea that we can think of that has not happened in this earth or hasn't happened in the universe at some place or point. So we are incarnated, and we come out this womb as a newborn baby, oblivious, most of us, to where we were. Well, no, let me say this, because as a baby, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't remember being a baby. I don't know what I was thinking while I was cuckooing and kikiing and while I was being fed bottles and being nurtured by my mom. I don't remember. So maybe we were closer to God at that point when we were babies. Maybe we still knew what our purpose for being there was. And then as we begin to grow up, we get indoctrinated with the belief systems of who we're in the custody of. And I say custody not to sound funny, but who we're in the guardianship of. You know, the area, the community, the people that we're born to, we begin to learn their way. And I believe that those first 7 years, scientifically, or not scientifically, but yeah, scientifically, the studies of the brain and the studies of in psychologically, the study of us as people between the ages of 0 and 7 years is when you get the most impressions in your life, the most subconscious or unconscious programming, right? So I think in those innocent stages, that's why we should come unto God as a little child again, because little children are so innocent in their view, in their way. I would say that those that we consider to be special needs, or those that are born Down syndrome or autistic, or having some type of what we may call a mental disadvantage, I believe that they are pure like children. That they have thought that they literally just live naturally, like they're supposed to live. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I got to get up. I got to do this. I got to fend for myself. Okay, I got to eat. I got to survive. Even when they start getting older and they start developing, going through puberty and feeling sexual feelings and all these things, they go through it in such a natural way, because they have no doubt. They have no fear. They're not moved by uh, circumstances like we are once we come into this whole understanding of life, right? So you're raised as a Muslim, you're raised as a Christian, you're raised as an atheist, you're raised as a educator, one who has to pursue education and intellect. You're raised to be a creative, and you live in a house with a bunch of free flowing parents that don't have many boundaries because they believe that life is flow. And whatever environment you grow up in, I believe that that's what, of course, you begin to lean towards as much as you can. And then there are those who are like, yeah, I'm leaning into this, but this doesn't feel comfortable for me. So I need to go find what feels comfortable for me. And when you try to do that, then you have the people in your life, unless they are free thinkers, that are like, no, you can't cross that boundary. No, you can't cross that limit. No, you can't do that. But I believe that we're supposed to live according to what feels natural to us, because that is the most purest, faith-filled way to live. And now some people may think that that is a contradiction to my religious practice. And if you say you're a Christian, then can you believe that? Because certain things are just not supposed to be done, and we're not supposed to do this, and we're not supposed to do that. Well, actually, truth be told, and this would lead into my last question of what do I believe about religious practice? Well, what I believe about religious practice is that religious practices are supposed to help lead us back to the I am. Lead us back to wholeness and oneness, the way we were when we were young, the way we were before we were ever incarnated into flesh. I believe that we use our religious practices to lead us into the thing that helps us, like, because we pursue it because it helps us to be better, or we feel like we are out of pocket, or some people never did church, but they felt the need to go towards wholeness. Right? They got caught up in the life choices that they were making, in the pain of it all, and the pain of the soul inflictions. The heart, out of the heart flows the issues of life. So all the issues of life are piled into the heart, piled into their mind. They're juggling, going back and forth between, well, I heard my teacher say that I need to be this, and then I heard my mom and them say that I need to be this, and I'm watching them and they're trying to live the best they can, but yeah, they didn't teach me how to do this. And so you begin to get all these jumbled up thoughts and these patterns and the things that don't feel right, and you feel like something's just not right. I need to find out what's going to help me to feel like I'm good again. Right? Because he made us good. He never changed his mind, but life can sure make you feel like you're not. People's opinions and thoughts can make you feel like you're not. And so I really believe that our religious practice is supposed to lead us to the place where we feel at one again with God. So as a Christian, I am a Christian because I believe that Christ Yahshua came to free us from the bondages that came along with anything that we practice. I'm not a Christian because I want to Bible beat anybody into a fear-based teaching that tells them that God doesn't like something about them. Because how could God be all things, create all things, know all things, and then create something that he doesn't like, and then challenge us to be something else or make us feel like we got to grovel and beg for his love and his forgiveness when his love is supposed to be unconditional? I just can't subscribe to that. So what I believe is that you have got to be convinced within yourself, like Paul said in Romans 14. You have got, let every man be convinced within themselves. And he also talks about the sin is in making somebody else stumble. So what we've been doing for centuries is literally taking what we believe and force feeding it to someone else and saying, hey, you have to eat of this. So the question I would have for you is, where's the faith in that? Your soul is aching. Your soul is hurting. And when you turn to what you say you believe, you find no comfort. So now you have to ask yourself, what is it that I really believe, and why don't I find comfort in it? Is it really what I believe? Or am I afraid to really settle into what I believe? Because I feel like God's going to be mad at me because that's what I was fed. So your religious practice is not a bad thing. It's not bad that you hold the Bible dear. But when you're reading it, are you reading it for the purposes of punishing yourself, or trying to see how you can punish someone else? How you can be judgmental about somebody else's behaviors or their lifestyle? Are you trying to find the scripture that tells you, how to go against everybody else? If that's what works for you. But how is that working for you? Everything about this walk, and this is another thing that I believe, everything about this walk throughout life, again, I said that I believe the purpose of life is to go through this journey back to God, back to wholeness, back to oneness. And so if that be the case, how can you do that in fear? Also, if perfect love casts out all fear, then why am I afraid to ask questions? To get clear in my soul the things that have been beating me down, to get my self-worth back. I had to ask some questions. I had to tell myself the truth. Like, you don't really believe that that's the case. So, it's like trying to have relationships with people and you're looking at people sideways like, should I really be having a relationship with them? Because what I was taught was I got to come out from among them. But this person that I met, I tried the spirit by the spirit to see if it be of God. And because of my understanding of what God is, and the fact that God is love, if I try your spirit and I feel love, then, and I'm not talking about being deceived into love. Because honestly speaking, if I'm deceived by love, then it's not love. Real love, you know it when you're in the presence of it. You'll know it when you're in the presence of it. And so when I'm sitting with friends and family, and I've literally watched y'all where I've had family members who converted over into some other, religious practice because it was better for them. They understood it. They can live it by faith because they understood it. It resonated with them. And I've watched family members because, you know, in the Christian faith, I watched them shun them. I listen to them talk bad about them. I wait for reactions sometimes when I find out information. I'm like, oh boy, how's this gonna go across? How is this going? What's gonna happen now? And then I begin to think about that loved one, and I begin to feel so much compassion for them, and I just want to embrace them and envelop them in a hug because I don't want to feel like I can't associate with you, the one who's had a beautiful heart this whole time we've ever been alive, been good to me, been nice to me, never had no issue with you, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to treat you like you got three heads because you chose a different path or a different practice. Yeah, nah, it doesn't work for me. So what I believe is that God is for all of us. And that as I continue to pursue this mind of Christ, as I continue to get the understanding of what Christ Joshua came for, as I begin to read and even read outside of scripture, and I realized that there was never anything wrong with doing that. I understand that people want to protect and they don't want you to fall prey to any and everything, but somebody should have warned me about that within the faith. Because the same thing is happening everywhere. This is a heart walk. So no matter what you call yourself, no matter what culture you come from, no matter what race, what sex, whatever you got going on, I believe that love is law. And I believe as long as we live according to that, we'll find God. We'll journey and be journeying back to this wholeness, to this oneness that we've been trying to find forever. Most of you who are listening to me, you go through agony every day, trying to feel like, trying to wonder whether or not you're being pleasing, whether or not I'm doing this right, whether or not I'm doing that right. That is such agony and bondage. And it doesn't make you feel great at all, but yet somehow you want to convince yourself that that's what you believe. No, you're just afraid to explore what you believe. You're afraid to explore what you believe. But hear me. Your soul's healing is going to happen when you really begin to dig deep and ask yourself the hard questions. Like, what do I really believe? And if you begin to do that work and then you tap into some other areas that you need to heal and you start healing those places and then you start seeing some things clearly, you can revisit it. You're not restricted. But because you feel like you are, that feeling of chains and bondage will always remain. Your heart has been broken by some of the very same people that you thought were supposed to love you the most, in the very areas where you thought that you were supposed to be loved the most. You got to explore that. You've been feeling beat down all of your life. You've been feeling beat down all of your life because you don't measure up to this particular standard. Some of you have been dreaming dreams and having experiences all of your life, and your heart is as pure as all outside. But if you tell somebody in your family or in your faith that you are having these experiences, they'll tell you that it's of the devil, and you have been living with that pain and pressure for all of your life. Be free today. There is nothing that is in creation, nothing that can come to your mind, no thought, no idea, nothing that has not been manifested from the greater whole, which is the great I am. So you may not understand it because our ways are not his and our thoughts are not his. But we can explore the portion of ourselves or the portion of God that is us, that is me, that is you. Again, in this whole grand scheme of things, being a human being, that's only a portion, a small portion of all that God is expressing right now. So our journey is to find our way back to oneness. That's what Christ Joshua was talking about. I wish that they and I were one as you and I were one. I wish they had the mind of Christ. I wish they understood what it meant to be Christ and come into the fullness of who they are in you. That's what his heart's plea was for the disciples that were walking with them and the people that he talked to and ministered to and tried to set free from bondages. I wish that they understood. I wish that they understood what it meant to be one with you, to not be ashamed to say it. I and God are one. Not that I'm God in his entirety, but that I and God are one. I am a part of the greater whole. I am a great portion or a portion of the I am. All that exists. And that's what I believe. Listen, thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for being present. Thank you for listening. And I don't want you just to listen to this chat just to say, oh, I was on it, to scrutinize and to go through all those motions. But I want you to really give thought. Give thought, because if your life is miserable, if you don't feel liberated, if you don't feel freedom, if you don't feel the abundant life that Christ Joshua talked about, if you don't believe that you are prosperous, even in your soul, then what are you doing? It can be very scary to step out there into new terrains. Very scary to step out there and say, you know what, I'm going to explore. I'm going to ask God to show me, to lead me and guide me into all truth as I need to see it, and then prepare myself for what I'm going to see. But God is all things at all times, all at the same time. So thank you for joining me. I love you so much, just because I can. And I pray that you have an amazing rest of your night. Many blessings. Hey. I want to say thank you so much for spending time with me, just partaking in that which I have to offer. I have something that I want to offer you for this month. It's entitled Expectation Granted. Now I want you to think about this. Whatever it is that's going to be granted to you in this season, is it what you desire or what you fear? Are your expectations about what you desire or what you are in fear of happening? Head on over to my link tree and download it today.